David Okafor had grown up surrounded by everything money could buy. At 28, he was already the heir to his father's billion-dollar business empire. He drove cars that cost more than houses, lived in a breathtaking mansion overlooking the city, and attended parties where everyone wanted to shake his hands. But none of it made him happy. Then Uju entered his life. Uju was a very beautiful young orphan who had grown up knowing more hardship than love. After losing the only family she had, she found work as a maid in the Okafor mansion. She was different from everyone David knew. She didn't care about his money. She didn't flatter him. She didn't even seem impressed. When he walked into the room one evening, David found her struggling to carry a heavy basket of laundry. "Let me help you," he said. Uju immediately shook her head. "Sir, if your father sees you carrying laundry, he might think I have become a bad maid." David laughed. For the first time in years, his laughter was genuine. From that day, they became closer. They talked secretly in the garden. They shared dreams beneath the star. And before either of them realized what was happening, friendship became love. But there was one person who noticed everything: Moses Okafor, David's father. When Moses discovered his son was in love with a maid, his face turned cold. "You will end this relationship immediately." David stood his ground. "No!" Moses slammed his hand on the table. "You are an Okafor. You will marry Cynthia, the daughter of my business partner. That marriage will strengthen our empire. I don't love her." "Then learn to." David's father leaned closer. "If you choose that orphan girl, you will lose everything. Your inheritance, your position in this company, your future." David stared at him. "Then I will lose everything." Moses' eyes hardened. "Be careful what you wish for, boy." But neither father nor son knew that the greatest battle had already begun, and Uju was about to make a decision that would change 3 lives forever. Uju heard everything. She had been standing outside the study when Moses threatened David. That night, she cried until her pillow was soaked. She loved Daniel, but she couldn't bear the thought of being the reason he lost his family. So she made the hardest decision of her life. She would disappear. The next morning, David woke up to find Uju gone. No goodbye, no explanation, nothing. He searched everywhere. He called her phone repeatedly, but it had been switched off. Days became weeks, weeks became months. David became a different man. He stopped smiling. He buried himself in work. Meanwhile, Uju discovered something that made living even harder. She was pregnant. She placed one trembling hand on her stomach. "David," she whispered through tears, "you will never know." She returned to the only place she believed she could survive, a small neighborhood far from the Okafor mansion. There she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. She named her Blessing because, despite everything she had lost, the little girl felt like a gift from heaven. But Uju's happiness was short-lived. Her closest friend, Ruth, visited her constantly. At first, Ruth appeared supportive, but secretly, she was jealous. She had always envied Uju. Uju had beauty, Uju had David's love, and now she had a beautiful child connected to one of the richest families in the country. One evening, Ruth stared at the baby Blessing sleeping peacefully. "She looked just like her father," Ruth whispered. Uju smiled. "David will love her." Ruth's smile immediately disappeared the moment Uju looked away. That night, Ruth made a terrible decision. A decision that would destroy a family for years. 3 days after Blessing was born, Uju woke up to silence. Her baby was gone. Her heart stopped. Blessing, searching the room, nothing. She ran outside screaming, "My baby! Has anyone seen my baby?" Ruth appeared, pretending to be shocked. "What happened?" "Blessing is gone." The search began immediately. But Ruth had already planned everything. She had secretly taken the newborn and left her at an orphanage under a false name. Then she returned to Uju with a lie cruel enough to destroy her. They found the baby. Uju's eyes filled with hope. "Where is she?" Ruth began to cry. "Uju, I'm sorry. What happened? Ruth covered her mouth. She didn't survive. Uju froze. No, I'm sorry. No! Uju collapsed onto the floor. My baby cannot be dead. Ruth held her while hiding the truth. But Ruth wasn't done. She needed David to be unaware that Blessing ever existed. So she created another lie. She told Uju that David had married Cynthia and wanted nothing to do with her. Broken and convinced, she had lost both her daughter and the man she loved. Uju left the city. Meanwhile, miles away, baby Blessing lay in an orphanage crib. She had no idea that her father was a billionaire, no idea that her mother was alive, no idea that someone had deliberately stolen her from them. Years passed. Blessing grew into a bright, kind-hearted girl. She often watched other children leave the orphanage with their parents. One evening, she asked the caretaker, "Why doesn't anyone come from me?" The woman hugged her. Sometimes, family take longer to find each other. Blessing looked towards the window. Maybe Mai forgot me, but her family had not forgotten her. They simply didn't know where she was, and the truth was getting closer. 15 years passed. David Okafor had become more even powerful, but money had never healed his broken heart. He never married Cynthia. He never stopped wondering what happened to Uju. Then one afternoon, David visited an orphanage as part of a charity project. He walked through the children's hall, greeted them, and then he saw her, the teenage girl standing near a bookshelf. Something about her stopped him. Her eyes, a smile, the tiny dimple on her cheek. David stared. The girl looked back. "Hello, sir." David swallowed. "What's your name?" "Blessing." His heart began pounding. "Blessing what?" The girl smiled sadly. "I don't know. I was left here as a baby." David couldn't explain it, but something inside him felt strangely familiar. Then Blessing laughed, and David froze. It was the exact laugh he remembered from Uju. He quietly asked the orphanage director about her record. There was very little information. A newborn girl, no known father, no known mother, found 15 years earlier. David left the orphanage disturbed. But before he reached his car, he noticed an old photograph hanging in the office. It shows Blessing as a baby. David stared at it. Then he noticed a small bracelet around the baby's wrist. His face went pale. He had bought that bracelet. He had given it to Uju years ago. "Where did you get this?" The director looked confused. "It was on her when she was brought here." David's hands began trembling. That night, he confronted his father. "Did you ever know where Uju went?" Moses avoided his eyes. "Why are you asking about her now?" "Because I met a girl today." David placed the photograph on the table. Moses looked at it. His expression changed. Before he could speak, the door opened. Ruth walked in. She saw the photograph, and for the first time in 15 years, fear appeared in her eyes. David noticed. "Ruth!" She stepped backward. "Why do you look afraid?" Ruth said nothing. David's voice became cooler. "What did you do?" Ruth finally broke. She confessed everything. The stolen baby, the forced deaths, the orphanage, every lies. David stood completely still. "You stole my daughter?" Ruth cried. "I was jealous." David's eyes filled with tears. "You stole 15 years from me?" Then another question struck him. "Where is Uju?" Ruth lowered her head. "I don't know." David didn't waste another second. He searched for her. Days later, he finally found Uju living in a quiet life far from Lagos. When David saw her, neither of them spoke. 15 years of pain stood between them. And Uju whispered, "David." He stepped toward her. "Uju," she began crying. "I thought you hated me. I thought you abandoned me. I left because your father threatened to destroy your life." David shook his head. "And I spent 15 years believing you'd never loved me." Then he said the word that broke her completely. "Our daughter is alive." Uju stopped breathing. "What?" "Her name is Blessing." Uju covered her mouth. "No, she is 15. She is beautiful, and she has your eyes." Uju collapsed in his arms. For the first time in 15 years, She allowed herself to believe that her baby was alive. When mother and daughter finally unite, Uju could barely speak. Blessing stared at her. "Are you my mother?" Uju nodded through tears. "Yes, my baby." Blessing ran into her arms. "I waited for you." Uju held her tightly. "I'm sorry I took so long." David watched them, tears rolling down his face. But there was one final confrontation. Moses. David stood before his father. "You threatened to take everything from me because I love an orphan." Moses looked down. "I thought I was protecting the family. You destroyed it." For once, the powerful billionaire had no answer. Years later, David rebuilt his relationship with Uju slowly. There was no pretending the stolen years had never happened. They couldn't get those years back, but they could choose what happened next. Blessing eventually learned the truth about her past, and instead of allowing her childhood to define her, she decided to use her story to help abandoned children. She founded a charity called the Blessing Foundation, providing homes, education, and opportunity for orphan children. The girl who once believed nobody wanted her became the woman who made sure no child ever felt unwanted again. And Uju, she never forgot the pain. But she also never forgot the day she heard her daughter's voice saying, "Mom, I'm finally home." Sometimes the truth takes years to arrive, but when it finally does, every lie has nowhere left to hide. I hope you enjoyed the story. Until next, stay blessed.